Most people argue to prove they're right. You argue to expose weakness. Every loud voice, every desperate explanation only shows them who controls the situation, and it isn't you. You've been taught that arguments are about logic, facts, and proving a point. That's a comforting lie. In reality, arguments are emotional battles, arenas where dominance, control, and perception rule, not truth. Every human interaction contains unspoken hierarchies, and an argument is no exception. When someone raises their voice, interrupts, or pushes harder, they are testing boundaries, not seeking a solution. The louder, the more desperate they are to assert temporary superiority. Understanding this is the first step toward winning without effort. Most people lose arguments because they respond emotionally. They justify, explain, and defend. They attempt to match the other person's volume or intensity, but every word they expend reveals leverage, exposes weaknesses, and signals eagerness to please or be right. This is the exact trap Machiavelli described. Showing your mind's motions to your opponent gives them the power to manipulate outcomes. Calmness is your weapon. Silence is your shield. By refusing to participate on the emotional battlefield, you force the other person to fight against themselves. Every shout and every accusation reflects their need for validation. While they exhaust themselves, you maintain composure. You do not seek victory through argument. You command it through restraint. In this chapter, we will break down the psychology behind this dynamic and why emotional neutrality trumps logical reasoning every time the human brain does not objectively process debates. It reacts to threat, tone, and perceived dominance. When someone senses confidence, detachment, and control, their arguments lose potency. Facts are irrelevant if delivered by someone who trembles under pressure. Conversely, a single calm statement from a composed person can shatter hours of noise because it signals authority, mastery, and unpredictability. This is why the most effective comebacks are never shouted, they are deliberate, measured, and minimal. To implement this in real life, start by observing conversations without jumping in. Note who dominates, who submits, and who exhausts themselves with emotion. Begin small. In a disagreement, pause before responding. Count to 3. Let your calmness set the pace. Your opponent, expecting a reactive argument, is disarmed. This pause is not hesitation, it's strategy. It subtly communicates that you are unconcerned with proving yourself and unconstrained by the need to win. Remember, arguments are rarely about the issue at hand. They are tests of will, probes to see who can endure, who can intimidate, and who bends first. By refusing to play by these false rules, you establish dominance without force. Every calm response chips away at their authority. Every measured word draws attention to your control. The principle is simple. Logic may convince minds, but calmness conquers behavior. In summary, the first rule of Machiavellian argument mastery is this: stop arguing to win. Start mastering your presence to control outcomes. The moment you internalize that arguments are emotional arenas, not rational discussions, you gain power effortlessly. Silence, observation, and deliberate calmness become your greatest allies. Your opponent's fury, frustration, and desperation will now serve your strategic advantage. In any argument, the loudest, most aggressive person appears to dominate, but appearances are deceiving. True authority comes not from volume or anger, but from emotional neutrality. When you remain calm while others escalate, you create a psychological imbalance. Their fury highlights your control, making them appear irrational and you appear untouchable. Machiavelli understood this principle centuries ago. Those who can control their own reactions control the battlefield entirely. Emotional neutrality is deceptively simple, but incredibly powerful. It means responding without letting the other person manipulate your mood or force a reaction. Every raised voice, every insult, every accusation is a tool they hope will provoke an emotional response. The second you remain unmoved, you strip them of leverage. You become the anchor in a storm of chaos, the unshakable presence that forces them to question their strategy. Why does this work? Humans are wired to react to stimuli. An angry tone triggers defensive or aggressive patterns. Emotional neutrality breaks this reflex. It sends a silent message: your aggression is irrelevant to me. The brain struggles to process someone who refuses to react, and in that confusion, power subtly shifts toward the neutral party. This is why the most effective comebacks often require minimal energy. They do not fight fire with fire. Instead, they redirect, reflect, and deflate. Implementing emotional neutrality requires training. Start by observing your physical and mental reactions in tense situations. When someone challenges you, notice your impulses. Do you want to defend, justify, or attack back? Pause, breathe, remind yourself that the argument is not about truth, it is about control. Respond calmly, with measured language, and avoid exaggeration or over-explanation. Each word should serve a purpose. Anything else is wasted energy. A key technique is the controlled micro-expression. Your face should remain calm, almost indifferent. A subtle raise of an eyebrow, a slight smirk, or a minimal head tilt can communicate understanding or dismissal without words. Your body language reinforces your neutrality, sending signals that are far more potent than any argument. People instinctively pick up on emotional cues, and when you remove volatility from the equation, your authority is magnified. Another powerful tactic is tone modulation. Speak softly but clearly. Low volume, deliberate pacing, and strategic pauses create the perception of control. Aggressors often interpret volume as authority. By lowering yours, you invert expectations. Now they seem impulsive while you appear deliberate. This inversion unsettles opponents, forcing them to chase your calm rather than dominate the conversation. Finally, understand that emotional neutrality is not passivity. It is a weapon, a strategy, and a form of power. By remaining neutral, you retain the ability to escalate only when it benefits you. You do not give in to provocation. You do not show weakness. You do not reveal your thoughts prematurely. In short, emotional neutrality allows you to fight on your terms, not theirs. In summary, emotional neutrality transforms arguments into stages of silent dominance. Those who react lose power. Those who remain calm gain it. By mastering this, you do not just win debates, you control the psychological environment, forcing opponents to act within your framework, giving you leverage, authority, and almost effortless dominance. The first of your 7 calm comebacks is deceptively simple, yet devastatingly effective: the mirror response. This technique works because humans naturally react defensively when their own words are reflected back at them. In an argument, most people speak without thinking, revealing their assumptions, insecurities, or contradictions. By calmly repeating or paraphrasing their statement, you force them to confront their own logic or lack thereof without directly attacking them. This is Machiavellian control at its finest. You end the argument without aggression, while asserting dominance. To execute this, pay close attention. Pick up the exact phrase or the central point of their attack, and repeat it in a calm, measured tone. For example, if someone says, "You never listen to anyone," you might respond with, "I never listen." The mirror is neutral. There is no accusation. There is no defense. Yet it compels them to reconsider their statement. The subtle discomfort it creates is psychological leverage. They start thinking, "Did I overstate that? Am I wrong?" While they self-reflect, you remain composed, in control. The strength of the mirror response lies in its ability to transfer the burden of explanation back to your opponent. When someone hurls an accusation, they expect you to react emotionally. Most people will instinctively defend themselves, justify their behavior, or counterattack. But with the mirror, you do none of that. You simply present their own words in front of them. The silence that follows, combined with your calm posture and neutral tone, creates an unspoken power shift. The argument slows because the aggressor now has to fill the gap. They must defend themselves against their own statement. This technique also exposes hidden truths in the argument. Often, a person's claim contains exaggeration or bias. By reflecting it back, you subtly highlight inconsistencies without appearing combative. People naturally evaluate their statements when repeated neutrally. They are forced to think, reassess, and sometimes self-correct. Meanwhile, you remain untouchable, detached, and strategically in command of the conversation. A key psychological advantage of the mirror response is that it maintains your emotional energy. You are not fighting. You are guiding. You conserve mental resources while your opponent expends theirs. Each mirrored phrase chips away at their momentum. Arguments often end not because someone proves a point, but because one party runs out of energy. With the mirror, you make them run out of energy, while you remain steady and unfazed. Implementation requires timing and subtlety. Overuse can feel mocking or sarcastic, which triggers defensiveness in a different way. Use the technique strategically, during critical points, when their argument escalates, or when they attempt to provoke you. Your tone must remain calm, measured, and almost indifferent. The power of the mirror is in its silence and reflection, not in ridicule. Finally, understand the broader principle behind this comeback. Arguments are not about facts, they are about perception and control. The mirror response allows you to control perception without aggression, turning the opponent's weapon, their words, against themselves. By mastering this, you take the first step in using calm, calculated responses to dominate discussions while maintaining authority. In summary, the mirror response is more than a comeback. It is a tool of psychological leverage, a way to assert control without fighting, and a demonstration of emotional mastery. Used correctly, it ends arguments almost effortlessly while enhancing your power and presence in every interaction. The second comeback in your arsenal is the pause. Redirected, deceptively simple technique with devastating strategic power. Most people respond immediately to provocation, hoping to win the exchange through speed or volume. But immediate reactions are predictable and emotionally driven, leaving you exposed. The pause and redirect flips this pattern. You delay your response, creating a psychological void that unsettles your opponent, then guide the conversation in a direction favorable to your control. Pausing is not hesitation, it is deliberate control. When someone attacks or accuses, your first instinct is often to explain or defend. But by stopping before responding, you force them into discomfort. Humans instinctively hate silence when they seek dominance. Every second you wait amplifies their uncertainty. Their mind starts overanalyzing your motives, questioning whether they've overstepped or misjudged you. That discomfort is your first weapon in this strategy. Once the pause has created tension, the redirect is applied. Instead of engaging with a provocative statement directly, you pivot to a topic, question, or statement that neutralizes their aggression while subtly asserting control. For instance, if someone criticizes your decision, instead of defending it, you might respond, "Interesting point. How do you suggest we move forward?" The redirect reframes the argument. It shifts the energy from confrontation to problem-solving, forcing the aggressor to follow your lead rather than dictate terms. The beauty of this tactic lies in its dual effect. First, it disarms aggression by refusing the bait. Second, it subtly demonstrates authority, showing that you are neither reactive nor beholden to emotional triggers. The opponent is compelled to play by your rules. Every time you master the pause, you condition them to expect calm, measured responses. Over time, this builds an unspoken hierarchy. Your composure dominates. There's falters. Execution requires practice and internal discipline. Begin with micro-pauses. A few seconds after a provocation, maintain neutral body language and calm facial expression. Avoid fidgeting or showing impatience. Then introduce your redirect. Your words should be concise, purposeful, and non-reactive. Avoid over-explaining or justifying. The power is in subtle guidance, not lecture. This is where Machiavellian strategy shines. Your presence, tone, and pacing carry more weight than your argument itself. Psychologically, the pause exploits the brain's discomfort with uncertainty. Humans crave predictability in social exchanges. When confronted with calm, deliberate silence, the aggressor experiences tension, doubt, and subtle loss of control. The redirect exploits this gap by giving them a path to follow one you choose. They are no longer driving the interaction. They are responding to your framework. Every pause and subsequent redirection reinforces your dominance, making your authority invisible yet undeniable. This technique is particularly effective in professional and personal contexts where escalating arguments would be costly. It allows you to deflect conflict while gaining psychological leverage. You do not need to prove anything, shout louder, or engage in debate. Your calmness and strategic direction do all the work. Arguments end on your terms, without apparent confrontation, leaving the opponent subtly undermined and hesitant to challenge you again. In summary, the pause and redirect is not just a comeback, it is a strategic maneuver in the game of dominance. Silence and subtle redirection shift the power balance, drain emotional energy from your opponent, and establish you as the one who controls the pace and outcome of every interaction. By mastering this, you end arguments not through force, but through calm, calculated authority. The third comeback is subtle, precise, and ruthless. The question that exposes. Unlike direct rebuttals, this technique does not attack. It forces your opponent to reveal weaknesses in their own argument. Humans hate being questioned in a way that undermines their authority or logic. By carefully crafting a calm, neutral question, you place the responsibility for justification back on them, exposing flaws without raising your own emotional energy. This is power in its quietest, deadliest form. To execute this, listen intently to the statement or attack. Identify its weak point, contradiction, or exaggeration. Then, respond not with counterpoints but with a single, deliberate question that directs their focus inward. What makes you think that, or how did you arrive at that conclusion? The question is not curious, it is strategic. It subtly communicates. Your argument stands on shaky ground, and I see it clearly. In that instant, control shifts from the aggressor to you. The effectiveness of this technique lies in its psychological mechanics. Humans are wired to justify their claims when challenged, especially through questions that require introspection. The aggressor is forced to mentally scramble, defending what they previously presented as unquestionable. Meanwhile, you remain calm, detached, and neutral, maintaining the upper hand. The tension created is invisible but unmistakable. They feel compelled to react. But every reaction only demonstrates their vulnerability. The question that exposes also exploits overconfidence. Most people assume their argument is airtight and that others will respond predictably. By posing a controlled, pointed question, you disrupt this assumption. Their confidence falters, their argument weakens, and their composure slips. You do not attack their logic. You simply guide them to expose it themselves, all while appearing passive and composed. This is the hallmark of Machiavellian mastery, influence without confrontation. Timing and tone are crucial. Ask the question calmly, without any inflection that hints at judgment or mockery. Let your facial expression remain neutral, almost indifferent. A slight pause before the question enhances its effect, creating a moment of suspense that magnifies the psychological impact. This pause is your silent assertion of authority. You are in control of both the conversation and the tempo. Another key aspect is selectivity. Not every statement requires this technique. Reserve it for critical moments where a point must be neutralized without escalation, or when an opponent's aggression threatens to dominate. Overuse reduces its power. Precision is what creates authority. Each carefully deployed question strengthens your reputation as someone who does not react impulsively, someone whose calmness itself commands respect and fear. In practical application, this technique transforms arguments into controlled psychological exercises. The opponent believes they are engaging you. In reality, you are guiding the interaction, draining their energy, and forcing them to defend themselves. Over time, this establishes a hierarchy. Those who rely on volume, emotion, or impulsive rebuttals are quietly disempowered, while your composure and strategic questioning cement your dominance. In summary, the question that exposes is a weapon of quiet control. It leverages psychology, human instinct, and careful timing to dismantle arguments without direct confrontation. By mastering this, you convert aggressive interactions into arenas of calm, calculated influence, ending debates while your authority grows. Unseen but absolute. Chapter 5 complete. Approximately 600 words. Shall the first expand. Chapter 6 comebacks. Number 4 to 7. Low energy shutdowns. Next. You said: yes, ChatGPT said. Chapter 6 comebacks. Number 4 to 7. Low energy shutdowns. Approximately 600 words. The 4th through 7th comebacks are the backbone of calm, Machiavellian argument control. Collectively, they are known as low energy shutdowns, short, minimal, and devastatingly effective responses that end arguments without force, emotion, or lengthy explanation. The principle behind these comebacks is simple: less is more, and silence paired with precision is more powerful than volume or fury. Comeback. #4. The one-word response. This is a classic and underutilized tactic. A single, well-timed word like interesting, noted, or sure creates a subtle psychological effect. It refuses to validate the opponent's emotional energy, while implying observation and judgment. Their argument collapses under its own weight because they expected engagement, not dismissive acknowledgement. Comeback. Number 5. The non-reactive acknowledgement. Here, you lightly acknowledge the statement without agreeing, disagreeing, or debating. For example, I hear you. The subtle power is in your neutrality. You do not feed the argument. You do not escalate. This leaves the aggressor frustrated and off balance. As humans instinctively seek reciprocal emotional investment in conflict. Comeback. #6. Strategic minimal agreement. This technique involves agreeing only in part, without over-explaining or committing fully. For example, you're right about that one point, then stop. You diffuse tension, demonstrate control, and avoid giving away further leverage. Your calm brevity frustrates their expectations and subtly positions you as a measured, rational authority. Comeback. Number 7. Redirect or exit. The final low energy tactic is to change the subject or exit the conversation without aggression. You might say, let's focus on what matters, or physically disengage. This signals that you are not invested in pointless conflict. Arguments die quickly when the aggressor realizes their energy no longer matters to you. By redirecting, you reclaim control, setting boundaries while maintaining composure. The psychological power of these 4 responses lies in their efficiency and calmness. Each response is low energy, yet it disarms the opponent, forcing them to expend effort while you remain untouched. Their frustration escalates while your authority grows silently. Over time, repeated use of these tactics conditions others. They learn that attempts to provoke you will fail, reducing future confrontations. To implement, consider timing, tone, and posture. Pause briefly before responding. Speak softly, slowly, and neutrally. Maintain neutral facial expressions. Your body language should reflect attachment, confidence, and calm observation. The goal is not to humiliate, but to demonstrate control effortlessly. The less you react, the more power you convey. Finally, understand that low-energy shutdowns are the culmination of the previous comebacks. The mirror response, pause and redirect, and question that exposes set the stage. These 4 techniques finalize control, ending arguments efficiently while conserving your energy. You are no longer reactive, you are strategic. Your presence alone communicates authority. Your minimal words carry maximum psychological weight. In summary, comebacks. Number 4 to 7 are calm, precise, and devastatingly effective tools. They require almost no energy, yet they dominate the conversation. By mastering them, you end arguments without confrontation, maintain psychological superiority, and ensure your authority is felt, not challenged. The final chapter delivers the ultimate Machiavellian principle: control without victory. Most people believe winning an argument is the goal, proving a point, gaining approval, or dominating verbally. This is a trap. True power lies not in victory but in shaping perception, exerting influence, and ending conflict on your terms. By controlling the narrative without needing to win, you position yourself as untouchable, calm, and strategically superior. Control without victory begins with detachment from outcome. You do not argue to be right, you argue to maintain dominance. Every comeback, pause, or question is a tool to shift energy and psychological weight onto your opponent. They may feel they have one in the moment, but in reality, you dictate the pace, tone, and emotional environment. Your calm, calculated presence ensures that the argument ends under your influence even if it appears unresolved. This principle also leverages invisibility as a weapon. Often, the most powerful move is to say nothing, let them exhaust themselves, and then act only when necessary. Silence, measured responses, and minimal engagement make you unpredictable and authoritative. People instinctively respect or fear those who do not react impulsively, and your restraint becomes a psychological edge. Control is maintained even without explicit victory. The final law emphasizes strategic perception management. When you remain calm, collected, and minimally reactive, others interpret your behavior as confidence, intelligence, and superiority. Arguments no longer matter. Your aura dominates the interaction. Every low-energy comeback, mirrored phrase, and subtle pause reinforces this perception. You have not won in the conventional sense, but the battle is over before it began because your opponent is mentally disarmed. Another key aspect is long-term influence. Winning a single argument can create short-term satisfaction, but it rarely changes behavior. Control without victory, however, shapes patterns. Others learn that provoking you is futile. They recognize your authority without confrontation, and over time, this ensures sustained dominance in all interactions. The true measure of power is not the argument itself, but the lasting impression it leaves. To implement this, cultivate a mindset of calm sovereignty. Treat every provocation as a test, every debate as a stage for psychological mastery. Use the previous comeback's mirror response, pause and redirect, question that exposes low-energy shutdowns as tools to maintain leverage. Your goal is not engagement but influence, not reaction but orchestration. By focusing on control rather than victory, you conserve energy, command respect, and leave opponents powerless. Finally, understand the broader human truth. Most conflicts are trivial, emotional, and fleeting. People fight for validation, ego, or fleeting dominance. By rising above the need to win, you separate yourself from the herd. You demonstrate mastery, authority, and detachment, the traits that define leaders, strategists, and those who operate beyond ordinary social games. Control without victory is the ultimate expression of Machiavellian intelligence. In summary, this final chapter cements the philosophy behind all previous comebacks. The mirror response, pause and redirect, question that exposes low-energy shutdowns are tools, but mastery comes from understanding that winning is irrelevant. Power is not measured in arguments, it is measured in the quiet influence, respect, and dominance you project. By embracing control without victory, you become untouchable, calm, and strategically sovereign in every interaction.